Up, bud? It's pretty good.
All right, and we are live. Tom, take it away.
Welcome everybody, Tom and Dave Show. We are back. It is the first edition of what will hopefully become a running installment. It is Wednesday night. Wednesday night to be determined. We don't know exactly what the third word of our Wednesday night series will
Yeah,
be.
at at the moment it's just called Live Wednesdays. So if you have any better ideas for that, please put them in the stream chat. Um,
We
where
yeah we talked about
the gist of
Wednesday
it
night
will
hype.
be that we are going live on Wednesdays. So make sure you're
Yeah,
keeping
that
those in mind.
that's the gist. Dave, you proposed the name Tom and Dave's Days.
Yes. Um, I did. I think it tries to play on my name and the odd way that Wednesday is spelled.
Ah,
That's what I was thinking with
I
the
like
es, the wedness.
yeah, Wednesdays.
Yeah. Um, so
That's good.
Um,
That's the kind of thinking content that we deliver here.
so yeah, let us know what you think of Tom and Dave's days in the chat. I'll write it in the chat so people can understand what we're thinking about here. Um,
Yeah, the level. So while Dave writes in the chat, I'll just do a little bit of an intro to this video or this live stream. We're not editing this one. That is not the reason we're going live. But yeah, so it's Tom and Dave's Days live. We are coming to you from Boston and New York, respectively. And tonight we are doing the Young Cores episode. It is a pretty simple exercise. Top 5 teams as ranked by the players that they have who are 25 and under.
Very important
Dave,
distinction there.
This,
they can be 25.
25-year-olds qualify.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. I think there were a couple that I was surprised to see just barely made the cut. Like Karl Anthony Towns is 25 right now.
Yeah.
But then like Dylan Brooks, 26.
Brooks, yeah.
A week ago.
Joel Embiid, 26.
Yeah. Like barely misses the cut.
So,
and actually that was one that had a big impact on my rankings because like if Embiid's 25, Philly's probably number 1 right now.
Yeah. So yeah, Tom, how did you go about figuring out your list here and judging these young players and young cores? Did you have any standards you were looking at throughout the league, or just kind of judging each team as they go?
I kind of didn't want to lock myself into too specific of a like statistical standard, because with a lot of these, it's still kind of we're projecting a couple of years out. Find the midway point between like, oh yeah, these guys have this high and they're already here. Like kind of that point in the middle where it's like, all right, yeah, they still have quite a bit to go, but also to an extent they've arrived. Mm-hmm. And like that looks different statistically across positions. But there were a lot of teams I was looking at here where I was like, you know what? I would have thought they'd be higher on this. Like Miami was one where I was like, oh yeah, like Bam, Tyler Hero. They've got like, surely they have a third player who's young and like really talented, really highly touted. Looking at their roster, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
So like Miami was a team I was expecting to put on here. I didn't. But for the most part, it was kind of trying to find those groups where, and like, I think I might have valued quantity a little too much over like quality. But I tried to find a midway point between like players who are already doing it and players who have growth left to do. What was your strategy?
Similar strategy here. I looked at 2 things though, mostly, and that was the talent ceiling of the young core and the talent and the fit ceiling of the young core.
Okay.
I'm trying to think here of teams with young cores, and who knows, maybe this isn't the best way to go about it, with young cores that can be maybe a championship team.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought fit was an important part of this. So there are, some teams that might be penalized a little bit despite having great talent but not great fit, and other teams might go the other way. But yeah, I think we were just talking about this before we started. We had a tough time. Both of us had a solid 4. And also, we don't know each other's picks, so we don't know if we have the same 4.
We are going in blind.
So we had a solid 4, and then I have, at the moment, 11 teams at number 5. Which is
when you say 11 teams at number 5, elaborate on that, because that is a fascinating concept to me.
Okay, well, some of these are probably not worthy. But these were 11 teams I was considering at the 5 spot, I guess is the better way to put it.
One of them Miami.
One of them is the Heat. But I wasn't seriously considering them. I don't think.
Okay.
Well, this is where you get into the ceiling discussion, I think.
Right.
I think and I don't think this is me being a Heat homer. I think there's a very realistic world
already
where Bam can become like a top 8 to 10 player. I don't think he's that far off from it right now. I think right now he's firmly in that like 15 to 20 spot if I were to do rankings. So jumping from 15 to 20 when you're 23 to that 8 to 10 spot in a couple years, don't think is very unrealistic.
He did that.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic, you could argue, did that.
Yeah. The question then becomes with Hero. I don't really know what the ceiling is on Hero. Um, the Heat like to compare him to someone like Devin Booker. Um, I don't know if I see that quite yet. And then the only other young player you're looking at is Precious Achua,
Yeah.
who has played about 17 games in the NBA. So,
I think the Tyler Hero point is really good because like I think a lot of people who don't watch the Heat night in night out saw him like their first exposure to Hero Ball was the playoffs last year, where it was like, oh, he put up 37 in a conference finals game. This dude has it. And it's like, well, sure, but also he's a little bit more limited than I think or he's a little bit more limited than we like might have realized when we only saw one playoff game. I'll put it that way.
yeah, I mean, it's an the issue with Hero is that I don't think it'd be unrealistic for Tyler Hero to score 22 to 25 points a game for a few seasons in a row, but
Yeah.
the issues are always going to be on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not like he's a player where it's the IQ that's lacking. It is just the physicalities.
Yeah. Like and that to be fair, like he's 20 right now. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Who's to say by the time he's like 23, 24, he hasn't bulked up a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, that happens with players.
Um, so do we want to keep going through these like teams that almost made the cut before we go?
Do you want to go like shot for shot on teams that we like almost put on here?
Yeah, you go for your next one.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'll start with a team that I sort of half mentioned earlier. I almost had the Timberwolves on here.
Same. They're in my 11.
It's mainly just because like I realized while doing research on their roster that Karl Anthony Towns technically qualifies for this exercise. And like once you do that, they're like top three because my process was also looking at like the top three sort of young assets. I hate saying assets because like they're basketball players, they're people. So the top three players on that team, the assets point is really just because if you want to look at like the Oklahoma City Thunder, then it just becomes Shea and a bunch of picks. And that's where you start saying assets. But for this team, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, yeah.
I just wanted to jump in there. The assets thing is interesting because there was a second where I was thinking like, okay, where do the Lakers of 2 years ago qualify in something like this? If you're able to put them together and turn it into Anthony Davis, does that count?
That's a good question, actually. Because, like, the Lakers of 2 years ago, do we want to? Well, the Lakers of 2 years ago, it's like, it's Lonzo, it's BI, it's Hart, Kuzma. Julius Randle at the time was under 25.
Mm-hmm.
Did they have D'Angelo Russell on that team still, or was he gone by then?
He was traded before they got Lonzo.
Okay, so it's those five basically, and then you have to consider like what those picks are gonna turn into. Like I think one of them became Nikhil. I think one of them became Jackson Hayes, which like both NBA players right now, more Nikhil than Hayes, but both players. But it's an interesting question. Like when you get into the whole, what's the value of a pick versus a player that's playing real minutes right now?
Yeah. Just to be clear for my evaluations here, I didn't really think in that way, but I did think it was an interesting question to bring up.
Yeah. Because like because there's a way you could look at this where you're going like, well, which team would I like to be in control of? And it's like, okay, sure. If we're playing GM, maybe you want to have access to just like all of the picks for the next decade and you can just trade for whoever you want to. But that gets really theoretical really quickly. And I would kind of like to avoid doing that. So yeah, I had the Minnesota Timberwolves. Because once you realize that Cat qualifies, the top three becomes Cat, D'Angelo, and Anthony Edwards. Now, the reason I didn't put them on here is because they haven't gone further than I think they had 1 8 seed 1 year. I want to say it was like 2018.
Yes.
That they were 8 seed and they got bounced in the first round.
That was also because they had Jimmy Butler.
That's a better point too. Like, which another thing that counted against Miami in my rankings was like, yeah, sure, Bam and Tyler Hero, like two guys with finals experience, which matters. Like, That's not something every player on this list has, but how much of it was also like, yeah, they've got a lot of really good vets around them.
Yeah.
Um,
I would like to add into the Timberwolves equation Malik Beasley, who's having a very good year in basketball.
yeah.
Um, uh, I was about to say a very good year. Didn't want to say that. I'm not going to go into Malik Beasley's personal issues, but he is averaging 25 and 2 on 45% from the field, 37% from the line,
Yeah.
nearly 90% from the free throw line. He's 24. He's been really good for them this year, especially because ever since Towns has been out, they needed a second scorer to step up.
Yeah.
And since that's happened, Beasley and I think Edwards too have really stepped up a lot.
Oh yeah. Like I think I was texting you. I was watching one of those Timberwolves Warriors games, and like there are stretches where Anthony Edwards, like it's really easy to get, like why, excuse me, why Anthony Edwards is like this player that we talk about in the way that we do, and like why he was the number one pick in a draft that included James Wiseman and LaMelo. Like there are points where he looks extremely smooth driving to the rim. If his jump shot is there, like it looks really good. So like I get it with Anthony Edwards. Malik Beasley's a good one to add in there too. Like he was a good piece for Denver on a playoff team last year at what, 23, 24?
Mm-hmm.
So like they've got pieces.
Yeah, I've watched a lot more Edwards recently too, and I've started to really like him. And I don't want to do the player comp stuff, but I'm gonna do it, and
do it. And if you're a Timberwolves fan out there who disagrees, yell at us on Twitter. Give us the engagement.
With the lack of shooting ability, but the amazing ability to get to the rim, and just the physicality and the body, I think you could project maybe a little of a Jimmy Butler situation here.
I actually could see that. Like, especially because...
In terms of ceiling?
When you look at the profile of Edwards, too, like, was on a really bad college team and kind of had to, like, drag a lot of people along with him. And, like, I feel like that's a lot of the strength of Jimmy Butler's game. It's just like, all right, I'm going to somehow be, like, that force multiplier for everyone on the court with me. Like, we're just going to be better when I'm out here.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the big thing for so many of these young players. The next step is, like, even the best young players on this list. It's about not are you just putting up, like, efficient numbers, nice stats, but is everyone getting better when you are out there on the court, like you just said with Jimmy Butler. Like, it's that, and I'll get to that with some of my guys on, like, the higher ups on my list, is sometimes that can be a concern with some of these younger guys. But I do think that's kind of the step that a player has to take between very good, promising young player who puts up good stats and, like, superstar.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I mean, I think Dwayne Wade was even saying it last night on the TNT Tuesday crew show, where it was like, Jason Tatum needs to, or these are D Wade's words, he was saying Jason Tatum needs to take that step.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where I just got that from, why that came back into my head.
Well, there you have it. Someone smarter than both of us said it, so you can't get mad at us for saying it. Dave, who else did you almost put on the list?
I'm trying to pick one here. Okay, I almost put the San Antonio Spurs at 5. Which,
really?
Yes.
I looked at them and I was like, all right, it's Dejounte Murray and
stuff. No, there's other good stuff here though.
Sell me on the stuff.
So again, I have decided who I put at 5.
Okay.
So now we're kind of thinking of the 10 teams I had at 6. So the Spurs, I'll say the player that I've been most impressed with this year, besides DeJounte Murray, has been Keldon Johnson, who was in his second year or his first year. I think he's in his second year.
Right.
Another Kentucky guy, who is just
Having a
like
year this year, like in
like
terms of NBA players.
yeah, Kentucky guys are just always turning into good players.
Yeah.
This year, he is averaging 15 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists on 48% field goal percentage, 34 from 3. You'd like to get that up a little, but nearly 80% from the line, as well as being one of their best defenders. You also have Derek White. Or wait, actually, does Derek White make the age cutoff? I know he's a little bit older. Derek White does not make the age cutoff. My bad.
That was what kept them out of the top 5 for me.
Yeah. Lonnie Walker.
That player after that.
Showed some stuff. Devin Vessel has been a pretty nice role player so far. He could project into a good 3-and-D guy.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up. I didn't think of them super seriously, but I think the Spurs have actually very quietly done a super nice pivot into preparing for the future.
Yeah.
By accumulating a bunch of very, very long wing players who are all good defenders and who are all like competent shooters.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they're succeeding this year more than people expected them to, because they have a lot of athletic guys, and then you have DeMar DeRozan just kind of probing in the paint, trying to find one of these guys cutting or wide open for a 3.
Yeah.
And it's working out for them. And yeah, I really like Keldon Johnson, to be honest. He's like my favorite out of this bunch. Murray projects pretty well too. I think I've compared him before to like a Ben Simmons light type situation. I still do like that comparison.
Like how Eric Gordon was mini LeBron. Like
yeah.
This one might actually be true.
But yeah, that's how I feel on the Spurs. Who do you have next?
Let's see. Another team that I almost put on the list. This is gonna sound like a homer pick, but I gave the Knicks a look. I gave them a look.
They're in my 10.
Really?
Yep.
Because looking at it, like the 3 best young pieces on the Knicks right now, it's R.J. Barrett, it's Mitchell Robinson, and it's Emmanuel Quickley. Quickley might. No, I think it's in that order too. Like I think Quickley is really exciting right now, but like there are possessions where Mitchell Robinson is anchoring that team on defense. He's gotten a lot more he's a lot more competent around the rim now as opposed to last year where it was kind of like, all right, yeah, he's long enough to like get into the position where you're throwing him these lobs or where he's getting his hands on the ball off of a rebound, but he's not finishing them. You can tell he really worked on that in the offseason, just finishing around the rim. RJ, I'm happy to see. He coming into this year, I feel like a lot of people had already written him off, and it was just like, no, he doesn't have a jump shot. He kind of forces bad shot attempts. Like there's really a lot of people were saying stuff like this and just didn't see him as a rotation player. He's kind of turned that around. Like after a really bad shooting start to the season, he's one of the leading scorers on this team. Quickly is one of the best fourth quarter scorers in the league. I think he's like top 15. And if you look at
crazy.
Yeah, I sent you that graphic on Twitter today. Actually, let me pull it up because I'm gonna gloat about the Knicks for a second here. But let's see. Where is it? All right, yeah.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Emmanuel Quickley is one of just 18 NBA players averaging more than 6 points in the fourth quarter games this season. The other 17 players to do that will go from the bottom up. Nikola Vucevic, Nikola Jokic, Victor Oladipo, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Trae Young, Jason Tatum, Zach LaVine, CJ McCollum, Giannis, Embiid, Lillard, Beal, Kyrie, Harden, Durant. Emmanuel Quickley he's at the bottom of the list, but he's right there with them. Like, he's doing stuff no other rookie is doing. Tom Thibodeau refuses to start him, but I still think he's one of the most exciting young players on this team. And then you have, I don't know, like Obi Toppin has played 10 games, I think. Like, he might not have even crossed that threshold. So he's still got time to figure it out. I think Obi's like 22 already, though. So, like, not that that really matters. Like, I don't know. He's still young, but I think the Knicks have pieces.
The Knicks do have pieces. That's why I was considering them too. The I think the R.J. Barrett ceiling is like kind of very slowly getting higher and higher.
Yeah,
Um,
it's rising a little bit.
I think people. I think the hate that RJ got over the last like year is really just because he came right after Zion and Ja and
Yeah,
wasn't as good as those two were immediately. And those two
and
were immediately, like top 40 players in the NBA. You can't expect rookies to always be that good that quickly.
yes, I also think a lot of people's first exposure to RJ was like, oh, Duke's playing tonight. I want to watch Zion. And then you tune in and RJ's hoisting like 20 shots in the game and handling the ball most of the time in the half court. And just kind of like, I don't know, people got frustrated at him for
Yeah,
that.
I know. That's a
Like,
good point when
got
you think
tired of
about it.
it.
He has pretty much been kind of overshadowed by Zion for 3 years at
Exactly.
this point.
Yeah, basically. But that was like the Knicks. I'm excited about. I think obviously like I think Frank and Knox are kind of sunk costs at this point.
Yeah, I was going to ask about
Like
those guys.
not like Frank is really like I don't think it's gonna happen. Um, but Knox like he's getting run, like he's getting some playing time. I think whatever you can get from him at this point is kind of gravy. Like he's still also I want to say only like 21, 22. Like he's not old.
Yeah. Knox is 21.
Yeah, that's
And
insane. This is his third year in the league.
how old do you think Frank is?
He's like 22 right now,
Yeah, he's only 22.
and he's I think going into year four. Like it's nuts.
Yeah.
They got
Um,
drafted so young.
yeah,
I think RJ is also younger than IQ, which I think is funny.
yeah. I
And
mean,
both of them are younger than Obi, which is a weird like mind fuck.
yeah, I think with that, you wonder maybe about the IQ ceiling with him being a little bit of an older rookie, but like
Yeah,
even that, I mean, he's still on the younger side, and I think the confidence and fearlessness that he plays with is very unprecedented for rookies, and he should probably be a top 3 or 5 rookie of the year candidate at this point.
I think he should be. Yeah, like I don't know what rookie is doing like is playing at the level he is. No other rookie has scored 30 points in a game this year.
Yeah,
Quigley's done. Like I think the only thing holding him back from winning rookie of the year is Tibbs.
that's a good point.
Also, IQ has started adding like, or he started trying like 30 plus footers, and like I enjoy watching it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that would be a cool shot for him to like add to his game. But there are shots where it looks ugly, and that's not fun. Um, but yeah, that. But I've gloated about the Knicks enough. I almost put them on, but didn't. Do you want to do like two or three more, and then try and get into the actual top fives?
Yeah, another team I almost put on was the Atlanta Hawks.
They were in my 6 to 10 range.
Um, I mean, they're helped by like just pure numbers here. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously Trey Young is, already one of the elite offensive players
Oh
in
yeah.
the NBA. Um, John Collins is a great offensive big man.
Yeah.
Kevin Herter is a knockdown shooter. Um, DeAndre Hunter has had a really nice year.
It's coming
Um,
together for Hunter a little bit.
yeah.
Like,
Um, Okongwu has not played barely at all, so kind of hard to judge anything about him. Yeah,
we
just
got to
get.
talk about Cam Reddish too, right?
Hmm?
We got to talk about Cam Reddish too.
Yeah, before we do that, I just want to bring up Hunter's stats. I've really liked when I've seen him play this year too.
Okay.
He's averaging a little bit over 17 points a game, shooting 50% from the field, 37% from three, and nearly 90% from the line.
That's really good.
Yeah, 5.5 boards, 2 assists.
I can understand why they picked this guy so high.
Um, so yeah, DeAndre Hunter is, I mean, I think we're getting kind of close to a point where you could say DeAndre Hunter is the next guy after Trey Young, especially considering the whole team's reluctance to kind of embrace John Collins in any way.
it's weird, like how good he is and how not part of a plan he seems to be.
Yeah. I also almost considered the Hawks for this 5 spot because I think the fit here actually works well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you might have some defensive troubles. Well, not yet, not might. You would have some defensive troubles
yeah.
with a Young and Herter backcourt.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
Actually, the Hawks still have Chris Dunn. How old is Chris Dunn?
Uh, if Chris Dunn is under 25, I actually won't be that surprised. But he's definitely like
He's
an old.
Yeah, he's 26.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, you have a fit here that makes sense between like everyone here can shoot.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, then the question becomes Cam Reddish, how he fits into this equation. What have you seen from Reddish? You think?
Oh, I was being sarcastic. I think Reddish is. I think he's kind of. We talked about it before the season, and I feel like it's kind of materializing. Like he's fallen on the depth chart just because they've decided they're ready to try and win games. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
Yeah,
But I think he's in that kind of Kevin Knoxy spot where like whatever you can get from him at this point, great, solid, yeah, let's do it.
yeah. His efficiency numbers are even worse than they were last year, and they were pretty bad last year.
Yeah, he
Um,
did do the double spin move last year though, an all-time
that's true.
an all-time clip of basketball. Anybody watching this after the show, go look up Cam Reddish double spin. It's hilarious. It's such a travel, but he basically like takes one dribble to the left from the top of the key and then spins twice, and he's at the rim. It's beautiful to watch and also hilariously ugly. So the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, so Hawks were closer to that 5 spot than
Yeah,
the other teams I've talked about. I mean, we didn't even talk about Trey Young. I mean, Trey Young, like,
he's a damn near 30-point a game scorer.
yeah,
Something I don't think anybody else that we have talked about has come that close to doing.
yeah,
Like I think Book's at like 27 right now. Tatum and Brown like 27 apiece right now, 20 high 20s. But I don't want to spoil teams that I think are on our top
and
five.
an elite playmaker already.
Oh, absolutely.
And like as annoying as it is, like he is like taken this mantle from James Harden of being the foul drawer, the like NBA's premier foul drawer on drives to the paint.
You can say it. It's the player that Bill Simmons is going to be furious at on a given day.
He always, I mean, he already has been before Trey started doing this.
Well, yeah, because it's the thing Bill Simmons does, where it's like if you're a young player who is not on my team, might get compared to a player on my favorite team, and like I don't know, does like some small thing that I don't agree with, then Bill Simmons is going to tear into you regardless. Like when Devin Booker didn't go play for Team USA in a not the Olympics competition, Bill Simmons was irate, just furious. But in any event, we don't have to talk about him. He doesn't pay his employees. He's not going to watch this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the Atlanta Hawks. Like, I think that's a case, and I do think there's like an interesting list of teams here where it's like they've got one blue chipper, and then it kind of falls. Like, if I wanted to do just a quick little speed round before we get into the top fives, like Utah almost made it on the strength of Donovan Mitchell alone. They didn't, but they were like a team I had to give a look to. Philly, Ben Simmons is still, I think, 25 right now. Like, I thought about putting them in the top five just because of Simmons. Like, after him, it's Matisse and Tyrese Maxey. I didn't put them in there. But the last team I want to mention is Memphis. It's like, Ja, I think, won Rookie of the Year last year. Like, I don't know. We kind of, awards last year were funky, but
No, he did.
They had Rookie of the Year Ja. Triple J is out there scoring at like, I don't know, stretching the floor as like a 4 or 5. And then Brandon Clark, a guy who they kind of just found under the radar at the back of the first round on, I think, a pick they got from Miami for Iggy. No, because Iggy was a midseason trade.
Yeah,
Did they get that pick? Who did they get? Was that a Gasol trade? Was that a Toronto pick?
That would make sense.
I think yeah, that was a Toronto pick that they got like JV and that first rounder for Gasol.
If you want to, Tom, this would be a nice transition because I actually have Memphis at my 5 spot.
Perfect. Launch into it. Let's go. Tom and Dave show is flowing smoothly tonight.
So, yeah, you went through the guys, but what Memphis has is, they have the blue chipper, the
Yeah.
all-star, probably perennial all-star guy in John Morant,
Oh yeah.
who is already at the point of his career where he makes everyone on the floor better.
Yep.
He's could be a much better 3-point shooter, but he hasn't really shoot enough to make it a big problem for him. He is very aggressive on his drives, has a pretty good mid-range game, has a lot of creative ways to finish in the paint.
Yeah. He was, I feel like, the rare case of like came into the league with makes everybody better as like a thing he already does.
Yes. And then the rest of this team, you got Jaren Jackson Jr., who hasn't played yet this year.
Nope.
But has showed a lot of promise. You have Brandon Clark. But then after those guys, you have a bunch of just random guys that are all under 25 who are all really good. D'Anthony Melton.
Justice still under 25? Is Justice still under 25?
Justice is still under 25. He hasn't played yet. He hasn't even played yet this year.
Has he played a game for the Grizzlies?
No, I don't think so. I don't.
Yeah.
I'd have to double check. He might have played a couple after the trade deadline.
My house on this island is going the way of GameStop stock.
Yeah, no, I'm off of it at this point. You have D'Anthony Melton this year. He's averaging 11 points a game and shooting 42% from 3.
Yeah.
Desmond Bane is averaging 10 points per game and shooting 51% from 3.
Yeah.
Tyus Jones is averaging 9 points a game, not shooting well from 3, but being in 9 points a game and 6 assists off the bench and playing a ton when Ja was out.
Yeah.
Xavier Tillman, who is 22, who is averaging 9 points a game. I didn't even know who this guy was before the season started, and randomly I'm seeing all these highlights from some big shots he's making and some incredibly clutch defensive plays he makes down the stretch. Dylan Brooks is still 25. He turns 26 in 2 weeks, or at the beginning of March.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's a big boost to the Grizzlies' young group then.
Yeah. The only guy that's left off of this is Kyle Anderson, who's 27. He's been an important contributor for them this year. But yeah, I mean, I had trouble finding a team with that many great young contributors, and these are young players that are playing really smart, know their role. I mean, yeah, some of these guys might not project into great all-star level players. I mean, I would be surprised if any of them do, to be honest.
What do you think the ceiling on Ja is?
Oh, I'm really
just
high
like peripheral guys.
What's the ceiling on Ja?
I don't know if you meant when you said like none of these guys project. If you meant like just these bottom.
Like, I meant the other guys.
Okay.
I'm very high on Ja. I think the ceiling on Ja is being a top 5 MVP finisher at some point.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think he's shown a lot at a young age, and like he's good at the stuff that usually takes a while to get good at.
Yeah, and him not being a fantastic shooter hasn't hurt him that much yet. But yeah, the other guys, I really like Brandon Clark. Problem is he's just a little on the older side. He's 24 already.
Yeah.
That's tough. But then you think back, you have guys like Malcolm Brogdon. He was an old rookie. He was like 23 as a rookie. Yeah. And look at how Brogdon's gotten better over his years.
He's like a late, like 25?
Yeah. Jaren Jackson's tough because he's been injured. Justice Winslow's tough because he's been injured. I mean, I watched Justice Winslow for the last 5 years on the Heat, and there are flashes when he has been able to stay healthy, for a long period of time and has a consistent spot in the rotation as like a point three, a point forward, where he looks awesome and can guard the best player in the court. So, yeah, I don't know if any of these other guys have all-star potential. I'd honestly say maybe it's Clark.
Yeah, like on a weird year.
Yeah, but that's it. Like I don't really see it for Jaren Jackson.
No, neither do I.
But they just have a lot of knockdown shooters. I mean, they have a team of Ja, Clark, Anderson, and Brooks, and then a million young 3-and-D guys.
Yeah, just like a bunch of swings. Maybe you connect with one of them.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think this team projects. And you know what actually really helped their case, Tom?
What?
They've been good this year. They've been genuinely good this year. They're 6th in the West right now with this team already.
Yeah.
They've missed a lot of games. Like, I don't know how many games they got postponed in a row. I think it was like 4 or 5.
I think they had a 3-game postponement that got announced at once after like 2 straight getting canceled day of.
Yeah.
I think it was something weird like that. But then they came back from that and had like a 6-game win streak. They were fun for a minute there.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. They've been successful with this young core already, and everyone's only going to get better.
Oh yeah.
Who was your number 5?
Number 5 it's funny that the last note you gave on the Grizzlies. Did you get everything you wanted to get in on the Grizzlies there?
Yeah.
Then it's funny that the last note you gave on the Grizzlies is that they have been successful so far with this young core, because my number 5 is one of the most disappointing teams in the NBA this year, but it's a team whose young core I still believe in. No, it's not the Mavericks. They're higher on my list. It is the New Orleans Pelicans. I don't know. I think this was definitely a bit more of a talent ceiling pick, just because like they are, I think, 14th in the West right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. They're 14th in the West.
They're one of the
they're
5.
7-12.
They're one of the. I was going to say they're one of the 5 worst teams in the league.
Yeah, unfortunately, they lost their last game to the Kings, which is never a good thing.
Even the Heat beat the Kings.
eyes of not Kings fans, the Kings should be 0-82 every year. Like, no team has ever lost to the Kings and been like, yeah, you know that's a team we should be losing to right now. And yet at the same time, like, you look at this team, Zion scoring 23 a night, Brandon Ingram scoring 23 a night. They are 20 and 23 respectively. Like, to do that at that age is really effing hard to do. Zion's also pulling down 7.5 boards. He's stealing the ball once a game. Like, Ingram's pulling down 5 boards, 4.5 assists, shooting 37% from 3. Like, there's something here with those two. And then also you've got like Josh Hart is still 25, Lonzo's 23, Nikhil's 22 and getting more run this year. Like, they've just got what feels like a lot of, it's what we talked about with the Grizzlies, like a couple of guys who could be MVP, all NBA caliber. Cause I think I'm higher on Ingram than most, but like, I kind of think both of them could be that. And then just a lot of swings.
Yeah, this is great timing again. I had the Pelicans at my 4th spot.
Would you mind talking about the Pelicans for a minute while I grab my laptop charger?
Yes.
Wonderful.
So, the biggest thing that held me back on the Pelicans was the fit issue here. I mean, I think both Ingram and Zion I'd project to be really great players. Ingram especially has looked so good these past 2 years and has really improved every part of his game where there was kind of a weakness. I think the next thing for him to improve is maybe his playmaking ability. And then you have Zion, who is like one of the most efficient scorers in the NBA, who can seemingly do just about everything except shoot the 3. But you know, Zion has turned into like kind of a sieve on the defensive end, which I don't think any of us were expecting, especially considering his athleticism and body type. But he gets kind of killed out there a lot. Yeah, then after that, you get Lonzo, who I still think is, you know, despite some very clear limitations with Lonzo. He is a good playmaker and a good defender, and I don't think he should be your best guard on your team, but he can be up there.
Yeah. Lonzo is like one of those. We talk a lot about like the winning plays guys, where it's like, oh yeah, you know what, like that fast break layup came because this guy deflected a pass. Like Lonzo is a high-ranking winning plays guy.
Oh, big time. I mean, it's like, I mean, this is the same stuff that like LaMelo's doing too, but it's the things like getting a rebound like quickly and then just, full Hail Marying it down to the court to your like teammate who's been the first guy to get back and getting an easy bucket like that. Like those types of things from Lonzo's. And I can't talk enough about the defensive, I think, improvements Lonzo has seen. I keep thinking about the Christmas Day game, Pelicans Heat, where Dragic was having a really nice day, and then Lonzo came in, and Lonzo was pretty much picking him up 1/4 down the court, and like putting a lot of pressure on him, and Dragic just couldn't get anything going against Lonzo. And Dragic can get going pretty much against anyone if he's feeling it. Yeah. He's just like one of those, pick apart the defense kind of guards. But yeah, and then after that, you get Hayes, who was a bit better last year.
Yeah. Hayes was always kind of a long-term play for them, I think.
Yeah. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's, got some stuff.
Yeah.
Josh Hart's still 25, but I think he's I don't know. I kind of feel like Josh Hart is who we think he is.
Yeah, Josh Hart, I think, is the Josh Hart we're going to have for a while.
Yeah.
And, like, to be clear, good NBA player. Like, can get minutes on a team that's trying to contend for the playoffs. That's something.
Yeah. Then you have Kira Lewis, who was their big draft pick this year. Who
doesn't look like he played a lot.
No, he was the 13th pick. Yeah, he hasn't played much. Actually, no, he's played in. Yeah, no, he's only played in 9 games, so he's still working his way into the rotation.
Also, he's 19 years old though. Like I think not every 19-year-old is going to be ready for the NBA.
Yeah. So I should say, I've been a little bit negative here. The reason that this is their 4th on my list is that I think there are I think there are only 3 teams with like duos better that have the talent ceiling.
Yeah, that's basically why I have them 5. Is like, well, the fits might be funky. They might not be winning games yet, but at the end of the day, like I feel good about betting on Zion and Ingram to be good for a while.
Yeah. I think you get it. Yeah, it's with the fact that Ingram has become a much better shooter, I think the fit will ultimately be better as long as they can get the better players around them.
Yeah.
The Bledsoe, it's funny when like these things just very clearly look like they're not going to work in the off season, and then and that's what happened. They don't work. That's what everyone was saying about this team. Like, this doesn't make sense. They're going to play Lonzo and Bledsoe together in the backcourt.
Like, and then Zion, another non-shooter in the front court.
And then Steven Adams. Is that what they're going to do? And yeah, that's what they're doing, and it hasn't been working.
No, like, shocker. Especially because, like, Stan Van Gundy, like, he coached those Magic teams in the late 2000s. Like, he knows you need shooters if your best player is a big. This isn't new to him.
Yeah, the Adams signing is still, it still kind of flummoxes me, to be honest.
What's his contract like? Because that felt to me like, let's get another asset real quick, and, like, we can save Zion some center minutes. I'm looking up his contract now just because, like, I have to imagine that the long-term play is we're going to put Zion at center and, like, we'll fill in around him and he'll be our non-shooter. Yeah, so Adams, this is the last year of his contract. So, like, if I was betting on it, they'll play Adams at the 5 a lot this year. He'll move. Like, I feel like they'll probably, like, they'll bring back Ingram. Ingram, yeah, no, he signed an extension, didn't he?
Who?
Ingram.
I was about to say Adams signed an extension.
On this
Yeah,
deal?
he's on. He's on until 2023 now for 18 million a year.
What are they doing? I want answers.
I guess that's a flippable contract, but Adams is
Yeah,
still only
but like
27.
you could have just let it go. Like he's in the way of your best or the person you want to be your best player.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense.
Maybe like that Aaron Baines deal where it's like he starts, but he only plays 17 minutes.
Yeah, it really should be more like that, and
Yeah,
you should play. I don't know. You play. I feel like this is the team where like they can destroy smaller teams by
yeah.
just getting a million offensive rebounds. Really change the possession game that way. Um,
There was there was I forget who said it in the off season, but like some NBA show where like the podcasters are getting paid to do it by like a sports news outlet said like there's going to be a team that looks at the Lakers winning a championship by playing Dwight or JaVale
Tom, I think
and
we
Anthony
said
Davis.
this.
Did we?
Yeah, we said this.
And that one team was going to learn the wrong lesson and be like, yeah, we got to play bigs now.
Yeah. We also said this about the Pistons.
Yeah, like this is the Pelicans just learned the wrong lessons from last year. And it was like, yeah, well, Zion will be a 4 and Steven Adams will be a 5.
Yeah.
And we will get all of the offensive rebounds. We will have one shooter in our starting lineup. Like if you drop this team in 1992, I'm not sure that they don't win some games.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. They'd probably be awesome in 1992.
Like 92 Steven Adams is just sitting there like, oh, you mean I can put these guys in a headlock now? Great. Yeah, let's do it.
But yeah, do you have any other thoughts on the Pelicans?
Not really. No, I think we kind of got the meat off the bone on that one.
Yeah. Who was your number 4?
My number 4 was the Phoenix Suns.
We're in sync here, Tom. My 3 was the Suns.
Okay, this is making me nervous though because this is now 3 teams in a row where I have had them one spot lower than you have had them, which means at some point up in this top 3, I'm going to have a team that's just not even there on your board.
Oh wow. Okay, that's interesting.
Like that's scaring me. I think I know which team it is, but the Phoenix Suns. This isn't like this is an interesting one to me because so it's Book. Like he's the highest. I think you could make an argument that like the highest ceiling guy on this team might actually be Ayton. But right
like,
now the best. What's up?
Yeah, I think in terms of like two-way impact, you have to say that.
Yeah, because like Ayton, just with how big he is, like could potentially anchor a team on defense, could be a problem on offense. And like as we're seeing with teams like with teams like Denver and Philly, like you can win with that sort of like, just like game-changing big man. But to me, I think Booker is like still the draw right now. I think he's only like 22 or 23 right now, which is insane because he's been in the
24.
league. He's 24, but he's been at it 5 years?
Yeah, he's in year 5 or 6 now.
Yeah, so like Book is the one where it's like he's young but has so much experience in the league. I do think the interesting part of this for the Suns is also that like Chris Paul, I think, has made them better, but has also kind of made them a little wonky. Like, I don't think they know how fast they want to play right now because they're doing that thing where, like, Chris Paul comes in and we move slower.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but it also, like, it does look different.
And it doesn't make the most sense with the type of team that they have.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
But, yeah, when you have a Chris Paul team, you're going to have a slow half-court based offense.
Yeah. But, like, it's weird because, I don't know, I feel like a lot of their pieces say, like, we're going to go pace and space. And, like, if Ayton can catch a lob running the floor on offense, great. But we're probably not looking to get into, like, that 5 seconds left on the shot clock space. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think Book also like one of the best scorers in the league, full stop, let alone like one of the best scorers in the league that's under 25. Like he's damn near averaged 27 points the last 2 years, shooting 49 and 47% from the floor. He's shooting better from three than he did a couple years ago. I don't know. I really like the young pieces on this team. Do you want to do some more on this? Just because I know you have them at three.
Yeah, I mean you're missing a big part of mine.
Is it Mikal Bridges?
Yes.
Yes, Villanova's finest. Tell me about the Bridge Man.
I think it was on the Low Post this morning where Zach Lowe described Mikal Bridges as if you put if you created a like a 3 and D factory where you had to optimize the perfect body and skill set for a 3 and D player, you'd probably make Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was good last year, but he's had some huge games this year. He's had a couple games where he'd had like over 25 points. He's become an unbelievable 3-point shooter. He is guarding the best player on the other team.
Yeah.
At the end of possessions in late games. He's averaging 15, 5, and 2 right now. About a steal, about a block. Great efficiency. What I also really like, just from a skill set standpoint here, is that, you know, we're going to probably talk about Mikal Bridges all year as like this 3 and D guy, like perfect complementary piece on the Suns. He's doing a little bit more than that. He's driving to the hoop a lot more. He is able to put the ball on the floor. I mean, we're looking at a guy who is like very quickly going from like role player to like complementary.
Good starter.
Yeah, complementary starters, like low star area, you know. Yeah, I mean, I think.
Also, like sneaky, very good off-ball defender.
Yeah.
Like he's in passing lanes all the time. I don't know. There's so much to like with Mikal Bridges.
His arms are so long. He's pretty.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
He's everywhere at once because.
Oh yeah, he's all over passing lanes.
I don't know. I want to figure out. I want to see exactly what his
wingspan.
Yeah.
We are talking wingspan, which I think means we will be appointed GM of the Milwaukee Bucks soon.
It's 7'1".
Jesus Christ.
But yeah. You also got Cam Johnson. You got
Cam Johnson's an interesting one because like I feel like when he was taken, we were all like, wait, what? You're taking like the 22-year-old at like number 9? But then it started to make sense because everyone, like the Suns kind of went, oh no, like this, we're drafting him to be a role player. And if he can be a role player, this is a success for us. And now he looks like a good role player.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I think the big thing with this team, it was the best combination of the talent and fit ceiling, I thought, because you can envision a team that is playing Booker, Cam Johnson, Bridges, and Ayton together at once. And if they all reach, you know, whatever their ceilings are going to be, that team's going to be really good. They all complement each other super well.
The best versions of them, and I think especially Booker and Ayton, the best versions of all three of them together could be really, really scary. So that was my number 4, your number 3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are we at my number 3 then?
Yes.
This, I think, is where my list diverges from yours. And this is also one that I might have like gotten a little out over my skis on. I have the Dallas Mavericks.
I thought you were going to do that.
Are they not on your list?
No.
It's okay.
They were in my 10.
It's a weird, like they're a weird team to look at because I think Kristaps is still 25. But really, if we're like being honest with ourselves here, you're voting for Luka if you put the Mavs in the top 5 here. And like, I don't know. like I think Zach Lowe called Luka one of the biggest whiners in the NBA this morning, which I was very like I laughed my ass off at hearing. But I don't know. It's before this season, I feel like we were all really high on the Mavs. We were all really high on Luka. We were doing the whole like, oh yeah, well, Luka's going to be an All NBA player for the next however many years. He'll be an All Star for however many years. The Mavs are going to be a playoff team on Luka alone for however many years.
We had Bill Simmons in the offseason talking about how Luka is the next guy up to potentially be in the top 5 all-time discussion.
Yep.
Which is
it's not going great, Bill.
Way too. But the thing is, it's like you shouldn't. This is, I think, a thing we always get into, where it's like you shouldn't project like consistent linear improvement from these young guys. Luka's still only 22.
Yes.
21. He's still 21.
Jesus. I forgot he was younger than us. But no, yeah, he's 21, and like maybe this is a year where he takes one on the chin. Like I think in this offseason, the Mavs kind of like they might have gone a little too far into the we need perimeter D as opposed to we're just going to put a bunch of shooters around Luka. But like ultimately, I still would like to bet on the talent. Like I still think he will figure it out. But to also, apply some logic that we've used on other young teams, like there was a time when the Sixers had Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid both under 25, and it just didn't look like it was working. Like when they had Butler and J. Rich, and I think Tobias was their 5th starter, and there were those weird clunky end of game possessions where it was like, oh yeah, all of a sudden Josh Richardson took a 27-footer. Like we had no problem saying, oh yeah, it's not working right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the Mavs, it's not working right now. That doesn't mean we're out on them as like a young core at all, because like again, I put them 3rd.
Do you think KP is the actual complementary piece to Luka of the future?
So whatever I say here will sound like it's informed by my Knicks fandom. It's not. I don't really think he is. I think he can be a really good scorer. He's a very good complementary piece. But like I think the injuries are a concern. I think defensively he's always going to be more of a shot blocker than like an actual defender. Where like if he's on ball, it's probably going to be a bucket. But if you want somebody just like screaming across from the weak side to swat a shot into the 5th row, he can give you that. But also they're on the hook for a lot of money to him. And I don't know, when you talk about, like, I don't want to get too far into like the contract discussion, but when you're talking about these young cores and like part of the discussion does wind up being like, well, how will they build around him? And I don't know, I feel like that'll limit a little bit their ability to build around him. He's still been a 20-point-a-game scorer twice in his career already. Like, he's still got a lot. I don't know if he's the number 2 on a team that's winning a championship with Luka.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I don't know who that number 2 is, but
yeah,
I have a tough time calling it KP, and I think that's why they didn't end up making my list. I just haven't seen it from him in Dallas yet. But granted, as we've said, so many injuries. But that is a thing to consider. If you can't stay healthy, if you're not durable, not available for every game, I mean.
And like the weird thing too is, and this might be a bit of like faulty logic, but I feel like when Embiid came in, it was like he was injury prone until he just wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like KP kind of moved into that injury prone role. Where it was like 1 year with the Knicks, it was the foot, and then all of a sudden he tore the ACL, and like now you're looking at a guy who's missed a lot of games over the past 3 years.
Yeah.
So like I hope he gets healthy. I want to make that very clear because it's more fun. It would be a lot more fun to watch if Luka and KP were both healthy and at their best. But I don't see him as the number 2 on a championship team, which is also a weird, like, it's a weird set of logic to apply to these young guys. But at the same time, like, Ayton could be the number 2 on a championship team if he reaches his ceiling. Like,
yeah. And I think a good point that's often brought up is also that you never know when this like window of you having a generational talent is going to end.
Yeah.
and you
Yeah,
kind of have to maximize.
absolutely. Like I don't know. I'm trying to think of the last big player to request a trade. Like, I mean, the Rockets had it. Like it was,
Yeah,
we have James Harden. We're building around James Harden. All of a sudden, one off season, it's James Harden wants to leave, and yeah, you're set until you're not.
yeah.
So
Um,
Dallas is my number three, and pending, figuring it out. Who's your number two, Dave?
I'm really curious if we have the exact same top two.
They might be in different orders.
Okay, my number two, I have the Celtics.
I also have the Celtics, so I think we have the same top two.
Okay.
Let's agree with each other a lot.
um, yeah, so let's talk. I mean, they got the in terms of the talent ceiling and fit ceiling, which were the main things I was going by. It doesn't get much better. I mean, it gets one better. It gets one placement better.
There is exactly one team.
um, and I will say, I think the Celtics would probably be like 4 or 5 if Jaylen Brown didn't make the improvement he's made this year.
Yes.
Jaylen Brown this year is averaging 27 a game, shooting 52, 43, 76. Still a great defender. 6 rebounds, 4 assists a game.
Yeah.
I mean, his efficiency is pretty ridiculous. The new sets of moves he has, he feels way more confident going to the rim. I know you were talking to me. We were talking about Jaylen the other night. What were some things you've been seeing from him?
I feel like he's looking to attack a lot more, like off the dribble this year than he has in years past, and even like not even in terms of like, oh yeah, we need to call a set and then he'll like come off a pick and get downhill. It's like he'll catch the ball just over half court and be like, oh wait, they're not set up on defense yet. I'm driving right now, and he's to the rim, getting fouled, laying the ball in like in a few steps. And I feel like that's a sort of mentality change almost that really goes a long way. Where it's like you're seeing the game at such a high level, and then also stringing together like the handle and the finishing ability or the playmaking ability, because he's improved that too, to make it dangerous.
Oh, big time. I mean, he's also developed like I think a way more consistent like mid range game, and a more consistent like the awkward area between the hoop and like the foul line.
Yeah.
For like throughout his career, he's shot around 39% in that area, like the 3 foot to 10 foot range. This season, this is his biggest improvement in any area. He's gone up to 46%. And then obviously the 3 point shooting. But it's also that I think with the loss of Hayward,
Yeah.
all this turnover over the last couple of years for the Celtics, the amazing, Kyrie, the Jays, Hayward, Horford lineup that was, gonna be, gonna win 60 plus games that ended up kind of flailing away. Jaylen always kind of was the one that was, I think, lost a bit in that equation and had to sacrifice the most. But now he has gotten a chance to really run the offense, and I think Tatum being out for such a long time with them because of COVID protocols has been great for the long term of the Celtics team.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think also it's interesting. I mean, first of all, we've gotten this far into the Celtics review and we haven't even talked about Jason Tatum. But one more note on Brown. I think like the interesting thing was that they started this year kind of trying to run him with that bench unit, because it was like, well, if we run just, I don't know, like a Teague, Peyton Pritchard, Shemi, Grant Williams, Time Lord lineup, like we're not going to get a shot off.
Mm-hmm.
So like they needed to have one of Jaylen and Jason out there, and then they actually switched it to where like Jason Tatum's running more with the second team now, just because his game is more suited to being like the only plus offensive player out there.
Yeah.
So like it's a cool fit. Like I think we talked about that earlier, and I think they fit together really well.
Yeah, I mean they can in a defensive setting they can both switch for each other.
Yeah.
They have very similar frames.
Yeah.
I will say this is the only hesitation I had, and this is why I didn't end up putting them number one. Um, and goes back to what Dwayne Wade was talking about on TNT the other night. I
Yeah.
need to see both of them get a little bit better at the playmaking.
Yeah. Jalen's gotten better at playmaking.
Yeah, he's gotten better, actually. I should say that. Throughout his career, he's gotten a lot better, especially these last 2 years. Jason is like kind of stagnating in that regard.
Yeah, he feels like he's almost like too polished offensively, to the point where like he'll get the ball and it'll be like, yeah, no, I can get like 3 different moves off and then get a shot, and might pass up an open shot elsewhere. Who is Time Lord the third best young player on this team? Or at bare minimum, does he have like the third best talent ceiling of anyone on this team?
How old? I mean, I guess.
I have a hard time believing it's Grant.
Yeah, Grant. I like Grant Williams a lot. I think he can be a really great role player.
Yeah, that's exactly where I think he fits in. Like, I can give you some backup 4 minutes. If you want to go really small, he can give you some 5. But I don't know. I just think Time Lord has a little bit of a higher ceiling.
Peyton Pritchard? Say the game winner. Semi's too old. Aaron Neesmith's barely played.
Do we want to buy some taco stock? Because he's only 25.
I don't know. Who are the... Oh, it's Carson Edwards. And who's the other guy? Langford?
Romeo.
Langford hasn't played this year, has he?
Not that I've seen. Actually, no, he has gotten a little bit of run, I think.
I feel like, yeah, I mean, some of these guys like Edwards and Langford, I feel like have just been at the bottom of this Celtics like rotation in the 14th, 15th spot
for a couple of years now.
Yeah, and I don't know.
I don't know where they got Javonte Green from, but he looks good.
I don't know either.
He's 27, so he's not factoring into this, but he's good, I think, or goodish.
Yeah, I mean, this is also another reason why they weren't number one, is that the talent ceiling on these two is amazing, and obviously they can. I don't think this is exaggerating. You can see like a Kawhi Leonard, Paul George style of duo here.
Yeah. I feel like they both have potential to be like multiple-time All-NBA players.
Yeah, who are both two-way players too.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like I think Steve Kerr even said it this morning. Like they're two guys that can kind of do everything on a court, which is not something that everybody has.
Yeah. And I think it says a lot that they're number two and they're only 2 players, and we're kind of struggling to come up with a third one.
Yeah. That being said, speaking of the fact that they're number 2, would you like to unveil our number ones? Your number one, then, yeah. I'm thinking we have the same number one. It would be a very big surprise to me if we don't at this point. Who is your number one?
Well, to segue into this number one, another big thing with my number 2, maybe I valued this too much, but I don't know. I've seen success with Jalen and Jason. They have both been to the conference finals, 2 or 3 times already? Like
at the age of like 19 and 20, they took LeBron to 7.
Yeah. That was the year that Kyrie Irving was injured, and both of them played, some of the best basketball of their life.
Yeah, they went to the conference finals with Terry Rozier.
Yeah, they did. Was that the Scary Terry year?
That was the Scary Terry year, yeah.
That was fun.
That was the year that Jason Tatum dunked over LeBron in the conference finals.
Oh, yes, and that's when we got that meme, right?
I know that's the year that we discovered that Jason Tatum had like begged LeBron to follow him when he was in high school on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. So, similarly to their success, another young team that has already shown a lot of postseason success.
Give it to me.
Are the Denver Nuggets.
Yes! We have the same top team. Oh, thank God.
Oh, yeah, that's
all right,
exciting.
Talk through the Nuggets.
I mean, the Nuggets have an MVP caliber player, a guy who I would honestly argue is the MVP frontrunner right now.
He's like top two or three at least.
Um, I mean, does a single one of these other teams have an MVP frontrunner? You could maybe argue a Celtic. It could be in the top 7 or 8.
I mean, I know not really. No, like Indianapolis has top 10 player Domantas Sabonis, who's only 24, but he's
That's
not an
true.
MVP front runner.
Um,
And also, actually, Mitchell Robinson is still in possession of the Charles Barkley top 10 player championship,
oh yeah.
which he won by blocking Domas at the rim. So, until further notice, Mitchell Robinson is higher in the MVP rankings than Domas. But yes, I don't think any of these teams, other than the Nuggets, have an MVP candidate.
Um, you have Jamal Murray, who is a very frustrating player.
Yeah.
He's great, and I think he will continue to only get better. He's only 23, but he's a
Yeah.
very frustrating player because of the fact how we can see him for a 3.5, 4 week stretch average like 30 points per game in incredibly intense playoff series.
Yep.
And then as soon as we get back to the regular season, it's same old Jamal Murray.
God. It's funny too, because like I don't know, I feel like the thing that makes Jamal Murray so good in those situations is also what kind of limits him in the regular season.
What's
Where
that?
it's like the thing that makes Murray so good in those like playoff situations where it's like, all right, yeah, no, the moment's never too big for him. Like Jamal Murray will always feel comfortable getting a shot for Jamal Murray, and then that's kind of what makes it frustrating to watch him in the regular season, where it's like, nah, man, just play in the offense a little bit. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to be forcing a 35-footer here. You're up 8. It's the third quarter. We don't need it right now.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I never want him to lose that because Jamal Murray is, I think, I've been sort of simmering a new Tom and Dave player category, and it's the ridiculous shit attempter.
Mm.
And Jamal Murray might be number one on my list of just guys that will try outrageous stuff. I think there was a point last year in the Lakers Nuggets series where he went up and tried to posterize AD, and it went horribly, but he tried it. And that's exactly the kind of ridiculous shit that I want to see players trying in big playoff series.
Yeah. I think the big thing for Murray, for me, I'm not worried about his assist numbers or anything like that. The offense runs through Jokic. Like, I don't think anyone should be worried that he's a point guard only averaging 4 assists a game.
Yeah, like that's by
Yeah. I'd like to see the free throws. He's averaged around 3.1 free throws for the last 4 years, and it hasn't gone up. The highest it's been is this year, where it's at 3.2.
Yeah.
He should
And
be.
like, drives.
Yeah, and you can see him have the talent, I think, to do this. There's no reason, I don't think, where Jamal Murray shouldn't be kind of throwing some Trae Young tricks in his bag of some of those kind of awkward things that Trae Young does to draw contact and get to the foul line.
Yeah.
Because, you see a guy, if Jamal Murray gets to the line 6 times a game, then he's a 20-point scorer.
Yeah. Like it's that easy.
But he's been stuck at this same free throw attempt rate and same points per game for the last 3 years pretty much, with marginal improvement. But he's still, the projected fit of him and Jokic is just, it's perfect. I mean, a guard who can shoot and who can move without the ball in such creative ways with, I mean, whatever Jokic is, I don't even know how you describe him at this point.
I think my favorite thing that the Nuggets do that I don't really see a lot of other teams do is they'll just run like a pick and stop, where like Jokic will set a pick and then he just kind of won't move. And like whoever the guard is will be like, all right, I just need to like hold this pick down here because I know exactly where Jokic is. He hasn't moved, and he's going to take a flat-footed 3 the second I pass him the ball, and it'll probably go in. But like that pick and roll combo is really good.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, just to speak on Jokic for a second, I mean, he's having the best year of his career by far so far. He's never touched this level in points per game or assists or his efficiency numbers, really.
Oh, yeah.
he has more of a. I mean, this was highlighted. Who did they play when he scored 47?
That was the Utah Jazz with $200 million man Rudy Gobert guarding him.
Right, Tom. You watched a lot of that game, right?
Yeah, it was. So
What did you see from Jokic on offense?
the funny thing with that game is that like Jokic had probably 4 possessions at the start of the game where he was matched up on Gobert, and he scored on all of them. And so Quinn Snyder called a timeout. He subbed in Derek Favors as kind of like a, well, let's stop the bleeding. Let's give him a different look. Maybe somebody who can stay with him out to the 3-point line a little bit more, because it seems like the Jazz kind of want to keep Gobert closer to the rim this year on defense. And it went worse when they brought in Derek Favors. I think the big thing with Jokic that I'm seeing more of this year, though, is there's more movement to his game. Like he's in spot, like where in the past his game might have been like catch the ball on the low block, take like one turn and put it up. He's running like catch in the post and then do like a spin, take a dribble, take 2 steps, and then finish at the rim. He had one play on where he spun baseline on Gobert, stepped along the baseline, and then had a reverse layup that was like so close to the rim coming out of his hand that Gobert really just had no way of altering the shot. And then he had another one on like a possession after that where it was like he caught Gobert was on his back and he just turned to face him and finished right over him. So it's like he's incredibly hard to guard.
I think there's an increased athleticism. I mean, not athleticism, aggression.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he is starting to recognize. I mean, this is an example of him just going at like literally Defensive Player of the Year. But I think he's starting to recognize when he has advantages more, and when he should realize that he is the most talented player on the court and can take over.
Is he the hardest player on that team to guard?
Hmm?
He is the hardest player on that team to guard. Like as good as Murray is, as good as Porter is, Jokic is the mismatch there.
Yeah, almost every person you put on him is going to be some kind of a mismatch.
Yeah, like even Rudy Gobert got cooked.
Yeah, and I think, and you can see that kind of in his numbers. I was just kind of looking at his shooting, where he's shooting it from, and he's shooting it weird. It's the same as Brown, where he's shooting it way more this year in that 3 foot to 10 foot from the basket range.
Yeah.
And he's shooting it a little bit less from 3.
That I like though, because I feel like you're just one of those like. He can get a better shot if he wants to.
Yeah.
I think he is somebody that, like, if he's taking a lot of threes, he's probably settling on a lot of possessions.
Definitely.
But he is, like, making those threes at a higher rate than he was in the past couple of years, which is good. But
and then we don't even really have to talk about his playmaking ability. I mean,
we all know how that is.
He's the definition of making everyone else better.
Can I, if we want to switch gears off of Jokic, just talk about one thing that I really like on the Nuggets that ties into this?
Is it Michael Porter Jr.?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So the thing I really like about the Nuggets roster construction, and it's a thing that I've talked about on our show before, but it's that like they've left of taking guys who like might not have put it together yet, but could definitely like. Wow, my mind stopped there.
Project
they've taken
players.
Guys, what's up? Yeah, like they've taken guys who haven't put it together yet, but
high reward, low risk.
Yeah, like they don't have to play Bol at all right now, but if they get to a point where Bol is a playable player, that's going to be that's going to be a problem for other teams. He's like a legit 7-foot wing. This year they drafted R.J. Hampton. Has he started a game for them? No, he's getting like 4 minutes a night if he plays. But he's a project player. He was a guy who was really highly regarded coming out of high school. He went to New Zealand, and his draft stock fell a little bit. Like Michael Porter was a project coming out of Missouri. He had back surgery before that draft. He didn't play for his first year on the Nuggets. But it's like that willingness and also that kind of like luxury of being able to take a swing on these guys and the willingness to do so that I think will pay off for them, because like a lot of these project guys are coming into a good situation where they don't have to do too much on the court.
Yeah. I mean, Porter's really the perfect example of that. Porter was the second ranked high school player of his
Yeah,
class.
like I think
Um,
RJ was a top five.
yeah, and I think before his college season was projected to go number one or two.
Yeah,
And then yeah, that injury killed him. It killed his draft stock. Um,
yeah,
and I think collectively, as we like really want Porter to get better. I mean, he has been pretty good this year, but as we
yeah.
want him to get better, we almost forget that he's only played 65 games in his career so far. Um, so the fact that he's made such a big improvement in only 65 games, I think, says a lot about his work ethic. And
He's averaging 23 points off the bench this year. Oh no, that's 22 per 36. I'm looking at the wrong row on Basketball Reference right now.
he's averaging
Okay, yeah,
17 off the bench though.
which still matters.
He cooked the Heat the other night in the fourth quarter.
Who were they throwing at him?
This was before Jimmy Butler came back, so it was probably like Andre Iguodala. Um,
I love Iggy. That feels like a mismatch athletically now.
yeah, it was probably Iggy. Let me see. Um, Either way, there was a time. So the Nuggets ended up winning this game by 27 points, but there was a time in the fourth quarter where it was an 8-point game, which is just crazy how these leads kind of go and like come and go these days.
Oh yeah,
But actually, yeah, no, he was probably being either guarded by Andre Iguodala or KZ Okpala. I'm guessing.
another one that like I would go advantage Porter.
Yeah. And he made like three or four threes on high pick and rolls in a row when it
Yeah,
was an 8-point game and just put the game away before the Heat could even mount some better comeback.
Porter looks like one of those players who like always like he has no problems trying to shoot right over somebody.
Mm.
Like I
Yeah,
don't know
it's
exactly what his like height wingspan profile is, but he is very comfortable just being like, oh, you're right. Okay, yeah, he's 6'10". Like
it's his. I mean, he's not gonna. I don't think he's going to be as good. But the way he shoots over the people, it's like Durant.
yeah, like there's a reason why I feel like that was kind of the comp for him coming out of high school a bit. Was like, oh yeah, he does some Durantish stuff.
Yeah,
Uh,
and yeah, he can get lost on defense sometimes, and maybe not always make the right
yeah,
smart plays. But
like really good offensive teams will probably be able to switch whoever they want to onto him in playoff series.
yeah,
But like
and
the same could be said of Lou Williams. The
mm,
same could be said of like a lot of sixth man type players in the league. I
think
think
about
that's just kind of something to accept.
yeah, I think the thing about Porter though is that I think he could be better
Yeah. Oh,
because
I would.
he's got the body type to be a lot better.
Yeah. Like right now, he's the sixth man on that team, but in a year and 2 years, he's probably starting for them.
Yeah,
Like
and no, I especially mean like
Will
on
Barton
defense.
ages out of a starting role as Paul Millsap
Mm,
ages out of a starting role.
he should be aging out of a starting role now.
That's I will say, watching the Nuggets against the Jazz the other day, my biggest takeaway was like I don't think Jokic or Murray is really like the biggest problem defensively on this Jazz team or on this Nuggets team.
Mm,
Like I think it's the fact that their starting lineup is playing Barton and Millsap on the wings, and like you're asking Millsap to do a lot of rotating at
yeah,
35.
Barton. I think is one of those good. He's so long that he's good on the off ball and the help defense stuff, but he's not that
Yeah,
great one on one. And yeah, Millsap. I mean, it just reminds me
and
of like the Iggy situation on the Heat. It's just like you're giving
yeah,
too much to an older guy who's well
yeah,
past giving you much.
like it's not his fault by any stretch. He just shouldn't be asked to do that right now. Like
Um,
maybe he ages into more of like a small ball five off the bench role for them.
yeah, I think another thing, and this is like a complete um, intangible thing,
Hmm.
um, but I think it's an interesting thing to value. Sometimes with Michael Porter Jr., you're watching him score out there, and you're like, he might be the best. Like, there's like 5 minute sequences where you're like, he could be the best player here.
He does flash.
Um, and that's where I think the ceiling really comes in because if everything is put together with
Yeah.
Porter, And again, he's played 65 games. If everything's put together with him, you're looking at an incredibly efficient 25 points per game scorer
Yeah.
who's a mismatch on smaller threes and fours that are too slow to guard him.
Yeah, like I think there's a not all that distant future where like if things go right, you could be looking at this team saying Michael Porter Jr. is the second best player on it.
I was about to think that there's a time, there's an event where you're like, maybe Murray's the one that gets got to start sacrificing, like got to start.
And like I don't want to be unfair to Murray because he's a really good basketball player. He's one of my favorite players in the league. But like I just think Porter has that profile where like if he puts all of it together, it's scary.
Yeah.
And by extension, this team could be scary because
Yeah.
they've already arrived to an extent.
Yeah.
And is that super high ceiling on them still?
I mean,
which feels like a good place.
It does. I think, the commonality in all of our top picks here, we're going to see them all in the playoffs. And
oh, absolutely.
We're going to see them all.
Well,
what? Not the Pelicans.
Not the Pelicans. I don't like Dallas isn't in position to be right now, but it wouldn't shock me if they wound up there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dallas will be fine. It's funny. I see Dallas is 8-13, and I'm like, oh, they'll be fine. And then I look at the Heat 7-13, and I go into complete panic.
The sky is falling.
But I mean, the West is tough though. The bottom of the West is really tough. The bottom of the East is currently occupied by the Hawks, the Hornets, and the Cavs. All of which
are like 5-0.
Yeah, I know. I love how quickly these narratives change. There was a time when the Hawks were great. The Magic, remember when they were like 6-2?
Oh, absolutely.
And now I think since then they've gone 2-12.
Jesus, that feels magic-y.
Yeah.
The Cole Anthony hype train was taking off.
Oh yeah. To be fair, I think like everyone on the Magic starting lineup has gotten a long-term injury.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean Gordon, Fultz. I actually they were in my 10. I should have mentioned this.
Yeah, I gave them a look.
If they were healthier,
is Aaron Gordon under 25 still?
Aaron Gordon's not 25 actually. Never mind. Maybe they shouldn't be on it. But I guess you're hoping for Isaac and Fultz.
Oh, he's 26.
Yeah, he's 26. He's almost 27.
I thought you were he was still 24, and I was like, oh my god. But no, that makes sense.
But yeah, we're gonna see all these teams.
That's not bad.
Yeah, and I think I'm excited for all these teams. I mean,
yeah,
I would like to see
a lot of players we're going to be watching for a while.
Yeah, I know. I think that's the best place to end this off. Is that the league is in very good hands with all of these young players. I mean,
yes,
I've probably said it on the show, but I do not like the Celtics as a team or a franchise. I have a tough time rooting for them at all. But I really love.
This is annoying.
Yeah, but I really love Jaylen Brown. I love watching him play.
Yeah.
And if he can get me over my dislike of the Celtics, that says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back at some point, TBD. Keep an eye on our social channels.
Yes. I think we are going to try to do this every Wednesday.
Yes, I would like to.
And I think there's some talk in the chat. I don't know if we're looking at the chat, but maybe doing a top 5 thing like this every Wednesday.
I would enjoy that. Top 5 Wednesdays. Let's try it.
I think Pearl chimed in with top 5 players who deserve better.
Oh, Pearl's a Wizards fan.
Yeah.
I can't imagine who she's thinking of. But yeah, I would like to do that.
Top 5 basketball foods from Joe. I'm not sure I get that one.
Well, I think Joe is talking about preparing the basketball. Or is this foods that you could eat out of a deflated basketball? Joe, I'll contact him. We'll get some confirmation.
I think he's still listening, so maybe he'll chime in here.
Joe, if you're still there, please clear this up for us.
But yeah, follow us on Twitter, Tom and Dave 2, and
yes,
I think that's all I got.
All right, peace. Thanks for watching. Oh God, I just threw up a peace sign.